Start your engines. The Syracuse Nationals rolls into Syracuse, New York, July 18th through the 20th for its 25th anniversary. Experience the largest car show in the Northeast with over 7,000 vehicles. It's 3 days of hot rods, classic cars, live entertainment, and family fun. Mark your calendars and make the Syracuse Nationals part of your summer plans. Buy your tickets, register your ride, and get all the details at SyracuseNationals.com. Syracuse Nationals. It's worth the drive.
You know what I love, Steve? Being a jerk.
Listen, dude, we've been doing a show for 90 minutes.
If I had a chance to listen to the last call, we game plan for PJ Hall.
Uncle.
I have a list of guys I would never hang out with. Your name is right on the top.
Do you like the worst song bracket we're doing?
It's considerably better than the supplement bracket. Let's start with that.
I won a limbo contest.
Oh, my God.
Fran Brown joining us.
These guys are working their butts off. They expect to see their fans.
You want extra money just because you're North Carolina? I'm in all right
What
now.
an honor for you and Jordan to be next to me.
every day.
This is Orange Nation.
There's music, there's fun, there's us. It's everything you could want all in one place.
With Stephen Fonte and Paulie Sibilia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to have you with us. Alongside Paulie Sibilia, I'm Stephen Fonte. It's a Tuesday edition of Orange Nation. We've got the defensive coordinator of the SU men's lacrosse team, John Odierna, set to join us at 12:30. Terry Foy, CEO of Inside Lacrosse, quickly becoming a friend of the program, Paulie. Terry Foy will join us at 1 o'clock. Plus, we'll mix in your phone calls throughout 315-437-7644. What's up?
Not much, Steve. How was your night? Did you sleep well?
It was good. I did okay.
Yeah, I did too. It was a halfway decent night. I got a question for you.
Okay, right off the bat. What do you got?
Jordan has a great topic, but I want to ask you something. Syracuse this past season had a 10-win football season and now has a lacrosse team in the Final Four. Like, what is the realistic expectation to have all of these things at once? Is it a realistic expectation to be in the lacrosse Final Four, 10-win seasons in football, NCAA tournament in basketball every year? You know, is that sustainable? The women's basketball team? Because how many schools do that?
Well, look at Penn State right now. They don't have men's basketball figured out, but
no, but like it happens. Like Syracuse had 2 teams in the Final Four one year in basketball in the same year. Duke's done that a couple times.
Sure. I mean, you go back to the 90s, and this was commonplace.
But back then, it was different. It was a different world.
Understood.
It was the Big East was.
Are you asking the question in that you're saying that there aren't enough resources to be good in all of them? You have to pick and choose. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. That's what I'm getting confused.
Like if football,
I'm kind of wondering: is it possible? Like, could Syracuse possibly say, well, next year have Syracuse at football 8 wins with the schedule, make the NCAA tournament, lacrosse back in the Final Four, women's team make the tournament?
I think that the interesting thing about the NIL right now, and especially at a place like Syracuse, where there's not an unlimited amount of monetary resources for NIL, I think that success breeds success. So as long as things are going well, I think it's possible, right? I think that as long as football looks like it's trending in the right direction, people will be eager to give, and that will help football continue to move in the right direction. Lacrosse seems like it's on its way back. If you're giving to lacrosse, I feel like you'd be excited about giving to the program. And all right, Final Four, and let's see if we can, build this back up so that they're competing for national championships every year. And then I think that right now it's tough with basketball just because of the success of late. But it seems like this offseason they have made it a point to give basketball some extra resources, and it seems like this roster is more talented. I think next year is a very, very important year for everything you're talking about with basketball, in that if this team is able to succeed with the extra resources, then I think, that momentum, success breeds success. I think that momentum will carry this program forward. If they struggle again.
But you see it, even with the struggle, the recruits
Yeah.
still want to come here. They're
Right.
still lining up. They got decent players in the portal,
Right.
so the recruiting's been good. I was just curious in general, like how many schools are capable, even before NIL, like how many schools are capable of just piling on programs,
Yeah.
that the power programs like basketball,
I mean, I think Alabama
Stanford's
comes to
good in a
mind
lot
for
of
basketball
sports,
and
but
football.
it's not
Right. Not the
well,
not the main
Alabama that's a new thing in the past
Right.
2 or 3 years.
And
Like,
you said you talked about NIL in the brand new world. So that's why I say, like, at a place like Syracuse where they don't have the unlimited resources that like an SEC school does right now. Is it possible? Yes, I think it's possible, but I think the danger is that if you slide too far back in one sport, I think it will be hard to bring that sport back up to where it once was.
Is it possible in the ACC? How about not just Syracuse? Could a school like Duke be good in football, basketball,
Well, I think
lacrosse?
I think you look at a program like Miami, football, basketball, baseball. Miami's not in lacrosse, but could they be good in all of those sports? Could Clemson?
We're seeing Clemson creep up in basketball,
right? Baseball, football with Clemson, I can see it happening, especially the way that the rules are in place now, where they made these adjustments so that you take into account, TV viewership and success, and those schools are going to get a little bit more than the other schools, and so if a place like Clemson or Miami or Florida State, if they can capitalize on that, then yeah, I do think it's possible. Right. And I think that SU has football and lacrosse moving in the right direction right now. And again, I think this offseason with basketball was encouraging, but it's got to translate into wins and losses, for both the men and the women.
Bowling Ball says it's such a fine line between winning and losing with perception. SU men's lacrosse, 1 goal away from losing to Harvard in the first round.
Good point.
And now they're thinking championship.
It's a good point. It really is. They're we said that Princeton game, fair or unfair, it felt like if they win it, it was going to be a successful season. If they lose it, it was going to be a disappointing season. And that was another 1-goal game. So, I'll take that statement one step further. It was both these games, both 1-goal games could have gone either way. They happened to go in SU's favor. And now all of a sudden, all right, they're back in the Final Four. SU lacrosse is back. Whereas, he's right. If one of those games goes the other way, in that Harvard game, they look like they were done. Now all of a sudden it's like, what do you do with this program? They won double-digit games, but they bow out in the first round, and that's unacceptable. And so there is a fine line between success and disappointment in major Division I college athletics, and men's lacrosse right now has. They got to capitalize on this. Football's got to capitalize on this, and it seems like Fran Brown has done that. And they got SU's got to get basketball going, and they've tried this offseason to rectify. We've talked about this at length about bringing in Alex Klein, and it does seem like they have more resources from an NIL perspective than they did last year, and they can pay more.
Yeah, it does seem like they've gotten better at point guard. They've gotten better.
Yeah, sure. They kept the 2 guys they had to keep. They bring in the freshmen. They definitely upgraded at the point guard position.
Spot, you're still kind of curious if
and center. They like the 2 guys they got, but you don't know. We don't know for sure.
And I think they learned a lesson in the center department last year.
Right. They learned what works for their system.
Yeah, that
and what
position
doesn't.
is you got to have somebody that can get up and down the floor.
Yeah. So, you asked the question: is it possible? Of course, it's possible. It's not going to be easy. I'll go back to the League of Their Own. Tom Hanks says it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. If it was easy, everybody would be good in all the sports. It's not easy to do that. It is hard. But I think SU is, they're moving in the right direction with the main sports.
And I always say when I first started at SU, they're not anymore. There were powers in football and basketball, and Syracuse was one of them.
Yeah.
Michigan was one of them. Arizona, Miami was a power in football. They weren't in basketball.
Correct.
Like all of the football powers were football powers, and the basketball powers were basketball powers, except for Syracuse, Michigan, and Arizona at that point. We're good at both.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy to do that.
Stanford pops up every once in a while.
Sure. Right.
But that's rare.
Yeah. And as you said, times have changed, and it takes a lot of money now. I mean, it took money before. It takes a lot of money now to be successful in all of the sports across the board.
And our friend Gaper in the chat says, Cuse basketball will be much improved next year, but where has Red been publicly? Would love to hear from him. No sarcasm at all. I don't think this is a time for Red to go out and hype up his team. Shut up, get to work, and win. If he comes out and is like Fran Brown right now, all of a sudden, no. Just, this is business right now.
Sure. And I don't think that, because there's nothing he can say that's going to change anybody's mind one way or the other.
How many people called and were like, where's the up tempo? Where's it? He's got to, because everything he said, if they have to change midstream, people will be mad because he said that. And
again, I don't think he's changing anybody's mind one way or the other. If people think, all right, Red's the guy, and look at what he did this offseason, I'm going to support him, they're still going to support him. If people are like, Red's not the guy, and look at what he's done the last couple of years and the results, whatever he says isn't going to change their mind until games are played.
And he just did an hour-long interview on Cuse.com, and it's up on their YouTube. And I'll reach out to him this week and see if we can get him on. I'd like to hear about the players, but I wouldn't expect him to come out and be all bravado about it.
Yeah, right. I think they know where they're at right now, and it's all about winning basketball games. And whatever he says, again, isn't going to matter. It's the proof will be in the results, and it's a prove it type of year for the program, and I think they know that. So whatever he says in the month of May is not, doesn't really matter.
One last thing on basketball. You remember when we had Coach Beheim on, and I said, do you think Syracuse was better prepared this year than last year with the NIL? And he said, last year we were prepared, but we were ready for the amount of money it was. And he said, basically the same thing happened this year. It all doubled, and we're still, did you catch that? That he had said that?
Yeah, sure.
That can't be an excuse, though. But I think they got better players. Like, they got Power 5 players. But it was interesting to hear him say, yeah, we were ready, but we weren't ready for the prices that are out there now.
Yeah, and I don't think that should surprise anyone. I mean, again, you look at the going rate of, even like a quarterback on the open market right now, it's skyrocketed. Or, a top 10 player in the basketball transfer portal. The figures that these guys are getting, it's going up and up and up. And so, something needs to change, and I know there's a lot out there right now about, the conferences looking at a way to settle this down so everybody's playing by the same rules, even at like forcing schools to sign agreements that even if your state laws say other things, you have to play by these rules. Again, I don't know how legal it is to do stuff like that, but you wonder if that kind of agreement would be challenged in the courts. I assume that it would be. But there's a reason that the schools want some conformity here.
Yeah, and let me ask you another question. If Syracuse goes out and wins a national championship this coming weekend, will we see a lacrosse thing happen? Do you think schools will be coming for the seniors?
In terms of transfer portal, you're saying?
Like, do you think people will be ponying up money? Do you think there will be somebody that will back Brinks trucks up to Syracuse lacrosse players?
Well, I don't think it matters if they win the title or not. I think that if you're good enough.
I know, but you know what I'm saying, though? Like, I think if you, like, going in, had they not made the Final Four, I think the demand for their players would have been less.
Perhaps. I mean,
I know the money's not as big in lacrosse.
Yeah.
But Syracuse has a couple names that.
Sure. I mean,
people would want to spend money on.
Of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, I feel like all the best teams have, great players that you would want. I think that's going on to a lesser degree in some of the the lesser sports, quote unquote. And when I say that, I mean I know lacrosse is important. I'm saying football and basketball, are the main sports for these programs in terms, or these schools rather, in terms of the NIL money. But I think that you've got guys switching teams for a little bit more NIL. Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I wish we knew what NIL budgets were. Right?
For lacrosse?
For all of them.
For all. Yeah, I was just reading today. Let me find it. Yeah, Colgate lost Rory Connor, their All-American attackman. He's going to Georgetown. Now, I don't know if that's NIL related. It could just be, he's he's going there for his grad year and he wants to study at Georgetown. But, it's happening in other sports just to a lesser degree, I think, than football and basketball. Let's take a timeout. As you said, Jordan's got a good question for us on the rundown today. We'll get to that question on the other side. And then we've got John Odierna coming up at 12:30, Terry Foy, 1 o'clock to talk lacrosse. Back after this on ESPN Radio.
All the drama.
Now recoils, fades, and hit.
If you had to pick two sports to win in, it would be football and basketball, right?
Yeah.
What if it was football and lacrosse? But you got lacrosse like it was in its heyday.
But you sacrifice basketball? No, people would not be happy with that.
What if it was football and basketball, but lacrosse shit the bed?
I think people would be okay with that. Like if you're saying that those are the choices, I think people want football and basketball to be good.
Before you buy. No pressure, no gimmicks, just honest, upfront sales team that will give you our best deal up front. With hundreds of
I'm on a laxative.
find you the perfect ride that fits your needs. Whether it's the price point, a low payment, or a special one-of-a-kind ride that you've always wanted, Nye is the place. A short drive from Syracuse.
Ooh, bowling and curling. I would take that.
Come see why it's got to be Nye at NyeAuto.com. That's NYEAUTO.com.
It's time for Your Best Guess, sponsored by Pawn Pro on Erie Boulevard East in Syracuse. Your favorite local sports guys, Ryan and Paulie. Okay, guys, here's your question. What's the value of this item? You can't go over the value. A 1956 Topps Mickey Mantle.
You have anything you want to talk to Coach Odierna about?
No.
I mean, I literally interviewed him.
Just do the same interview. Nobody here watches you.
$10,000.
Well, the interview hasn't aired yet, so
Yes.
it airs tonight.
Mickey Mantle card, most recently sold for
Half the people here don't even know you're on TV.
$9.
Did you guys know Steve was on TV?
Brought to you by Pawn Pro, Erie Boulevard in Syracuse, where you can buy.
Put a poll up. Did you know Steve was on TV?
Tell you what it's worth, so you don't have to guess. Find
Yeah, what station? See, Gavendo has no idea. Steve who? Yeah, good point. Steve's on TV? Yeah, I had no idea. He is? Yeah, see, great.
You guys are funny.
Yeah, Channel 3, right? At 3 a.m. What's TV? That's a good one. Who's Steve? Yes, I would sacrifice lacrosse. PBS? I used to be on PBS.
Super cat. Stephen Fonte radio show.
I think Steve's more wholesome than Mr. Rogers.
Quick call can solve it all. 478-3500.
Okay, so today's artist is dead, so he can't get canceled. So we're okay.
Like while we're on the air.
Yeah.
Yes, MedicaidLock.net. You're welcome.
More choices, more value.
It's 100%. People had no idea you were on TV, Steve. That poll is crazy.
Well done, CJC.
Good job, CJC, and I'm sorry I didn't donate. I'm a horrible human. This is maybe the biggest crushing in a poll ever. Someone said that our commercial breaks are their favorite part of the show now. Yesterday. I get it. This is where the fun is. My God. Only 2 people knew you were on TV, Steve.
It's not a good sign.
No. Maybe you should just quit that job.
Call us at 472-9111 or write us at 235 Walton Street, Syracuse, New York, 13202. You may also email to community@galaxycommunications.com.
Live from the Harding Mazzotti studio. Hurt your body? Call Harding Mazzotti. 1-800-LAW-1010.
The artist of the day today, the Partridge Family and Sean Cassidy. I was shocked at how many of these I knew. He was what the kids would call a heartthrob back then, Steve. He was on Tiger Beat magazine. Remember that?
I do. Was he? Did they appear on Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, they had to have, right? Because I feel like they did a... It was always Laurel and Hardy. Like, I'm like, how old am I? I don't even need to know about Laurel and Hardy.
Globetrotters, too.
Globetrotters always came. Did you ever see when the Globetrotters came to, like, Gilligan's Island and then they would always leave and then they would never take the cat them with them? Like, what the hell is going on?
I did notice that.
Partridge...
Oh, I didn't expect you to actually Google it.
No, now everybody listening is like, wait, was Partridge Family on Scooby-Doo?
I'm going to say yes.
Partridge Family, Scooby-Doo, Meet the Partridge Family. I don't know. I don't think they did. Don Knotts. I don't see it.
All right. I guess I was wrong.
Maybe that's what you dream about. The Partridge Family and Scooby-Doo. Steve's dream collaboration.
All right. Before we get to Coach Odierna, let's talk about the question that Jordan posed to us prior to the show. And I thought it was an interesting question. So the jumping off point was about, the Final Four expectations for men's lacrosse. They're coming in preseason number 2. The expectation this year was Final Four or bust. What?
I've made a huge mistake, I think.
What?
Did I mix up Sean Cassidy and David Cassidy?
You're the music guy, so I
don't care. I don't care. I really don't. Go ahead.
We can figure that out during the next break. You may have we second day in a row. We may have to alter artist of the day.
I'm just doing it now. It's just a.
It's a collab.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
No, so I was saying preseason number 2, the expectation this year was Final Four or bust. And, Jordan pointed out that, the team got to a point, especially after those back-to-back losses to Harvard and Maryland at the beginning of the season, where they kind of moved away from that. And they, the focus became one game at a time. And don't talk about the Final Four. Players didn't want to talk about it. It was all about, what's next and win the next day and win the next game. And so he talked about that. Jordan brought it up as an annoying storyline around this team was, Final Four or bust. And he posed the question, what is the most annoying storyline, trend, narrative that you have had to hear all the time since you started working in Syracuse sports? And for me, it may be some recency bias, but for me, it's easy what comes to mind first.
Okay.
And that is the Joe Girard isn't good enough to play at Siena. All the time we heard it repeatedly. He's awful. Joe doesn't belong. He's not a Division I player. It got tiresome. And listen, did he take bad shots at times? Yeah. Was he great on defense? No. Was he a good basketball player? He was. Did he get all of his talent out of his potential? Like, did he realize his potential? Squeeze every bit of potential out of what he was given? He did. So for me, that was the most tiresome storyline that we heard every day for 2 years, was that he wasn't good enough to play Division I basketball. Anyway, for you.
Oh, man. There's so many. The game had passed Jim Boeheim by, has been around for the 15 years I've been here. And he made 3 Final Fours.
Max Parker brings up they should play man-to-man. That's a good one.
That's a good one. Football-wise, I'm trying to think if there's a football narrative that, oh, man, I think football just sucked. And you know what? There was a narrative, and I kind of bought into it, that it was unsalvageable. And I don't know that Fran Brown has salvaged it, but it sure as hell feels like he has. And I bought in on that one. Like, I think Syracuse was a joke in football, and there was no fixing it.
What about all the pushback on the New York college team motto and bringing the games to MetLife.
I know people think I'm a homer and whatnot. They should be doing that still. Like, I don't think people realize how important it is for Syracuse to own this state.
Yeah. And again, for all the pushback people give on, Dr. Gross and what he did here, he did get him in the ACC at a
you don't want to be
critical
UConn.
time. Right.
Like, we asked that question about sacrificing sports. Would you sacrifice the football program like it is at UConn, to get a national title in basketball?
It could go both ways, right? Would you sacrifice one of the two big sports to be truly elite at the other? Right? Like competing for, would you sacrifice basketball?
I was using UConn as the example because that's what Syracuse would have ended up as.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good example. I'm taking that question and kind of rephrasing, like, would you sacrifice one of those two programs to be national champs in the other? Would you give up basketball to be a national football champion or vice versa? Would you be mediocre in football so that you could be, a multiple national champion in a, 10-year span in basketball?
Yeah, Brian brings up a good point, too, that those MetLife games brought in a ton of money for Syracuse.
Yeah.
And people don't know it. Like, there's no college teams. Like, St. John's probably will take over New York City again, but when we were in the Big East towards the end there, you go down to a St. John's game, it was all Syracuse fans.
Right. Yeah.
And if you could own New York City, that's important. It's important to own Buffalo. It's important for Syracuse to be everywhere.
Sure. And that's why they do these coach caravans, right, before the season, and they make stops in Buffalo and Rochester and Watertown and Binghamton, and they try to regionalize the fan base because it is important.
And I don't know how many people hated it, but it came up the other day. Someone goes, "Is that sign still up at Yankee Stadium, New York's college team?" Like, everybody knows it was there.
Yeah, sure.
You knew it. Like, yeah. The Cavs in New York City, we'd be at the Big East tournament, and they all had New York's college team on them. And that was important, and I don't think people get that. Like, they made fun of it.
Right.
But we've been no better than UConn for football for the past decade. Yes, but they've gotten the ACC money out of it. That's the point. Is would you sacrifice the ACC money, be an independent in football for two natties in basketball?
It's an interesting question.
No way.
I was going to say no way now, right?
No way then. Ever.
I'm saying, like, if you're talking Greg Robinson level of success, people would look at me like, what does it matter? What's the point?
Back then you might have been able to, but like, you want to be in the ACC.
Well, yes.
But I don't think the average fan knows that.
Well, that's why I said, we're talking about tiresome narratives, and that's why I bring up Dr. Gross.
Do you realize that if the ACC came a calling right now, UConn would jump in a second?
Of course they would. Of course they would. Yes. No doubt. All right. We're going to take a timeout here. We're going to...
And to be honest, Daryl Gross did hire Greg Robinson. So
that is true. I know. I said he got some things wrong, but one thing he got right is that he got Syracuse into the ACC. That was my point. All right. John Odierna, defensive coordinator of SU men's lacrosse. He will join us on the other side as we get you set for the national semifinals Saturday, Foxborough, Massachusetts against Maryland.
Can I hit one thing?
Yeah.
So instead of stinking in just football, we sacrifice. You haven't sacrificed basketball, guys. They've been average, and they were below average this year for 4 years. It's not sacrifice. Don't give up on the basketball program yet. Okay? Thank you.
We're going to talk some lacrosse on the other side. We're back after
Above
this
average
on ESPN Radio.
Did somebody say football was just average or something? There were some lean years, even under Dino. Even if they suck this year and Red gets fired, I think Syracuse basketball can be salvaged.
For 46 years, Atlas Fence has provided quality, crafted fencing to Central New York. The widest selection of attractive fence styles, including several maintenance-free options, with expert design guidance and a highly experienced installation.
The chess team plays at a faster pace than Red's on.
Atlas Fence. For a consultation,
That's funny. That's funny to me.
or visit the largest fence showroom in Central New York. Check out atlasfence.com.
Yeah, Steve is on TV. Thank you for asking.
Where we want you in the driver's seat when choosing your Kia. That's why our knowledgeable salespeople are here to help guide you and answer all of your questions. This month, we're featuring
Steve's on the left. If for me, that's Steve. I'm Polly.
$1,999 due at signing. Family owned since 1973 and providing award-winning sales and service. Come check our newly remodeled state-of-the-art facility and shop pre-tariff pricing at
Steve's the one that will ask lacrosse questions.
Play.com. 36 months, 10,000 miles per year, $1,999.
How do you like that?
First payment tax.
How was that for a
Those are great
sick
comeback.
burn?
Those are great comeback.
Sick, sick burn.
Must finance through KMF. No security deposit to qualified buyers. N6225.
The most delicious weekend of the year is almost here. It's the Summit Federal Credit Union Taste of Syracuse, presented by Tops Friendly Markets, June 6th and 7th in and around Clinton Square. It's the
Who's Brett?
festival in our area. with
Brett's a
something for
moderator?
everyone. This year you'll find
That's a good question.
like Kiki's Authentic
Or did he just create his own icon?
chocolate taps and Vietnamese noodle house.
Enjoy $2 samples or make it a whole meal and wash it down with an ice cold beer from Onondaga Beverage.
You know who hasn't been around in a while? Mythic Hook.
.com.
You love to work on automobiles. You're a great
Tylon Ennis got an offer from Syracuse.
in a substandard shop and are not appreciated or paid what you're worth. It's time to change. You and your family deserve better. The McGuire
Is that
Auto Group
weird that his brother's that much younger than him? I guess that, because my brothers are all... I have a brother that's fucking 70.
respect, pay, and
Our little guy is 13 years younger than
Yeah.
Luke, so
work for McGuire. Your earning potential and
I talk to Brent all the time, Florida guy. I think we're supposed to go to a movie or something soon, as a matter of fact. Is there like a re-release of a movie? Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Sith, whatever the fuck that movie is, Revenge of the Sith. We were supposed to go to that. If that happened, I guess we aren't friends.
talk to McGuire now. We want your great attitude and superior skills on our team. Apply today at any McGuire dealership or online at McGuireCars.com. McGuire is an equal opportunity employer. Players only. Presented by
If Brett the Hatchet actually works here and it's somebody being a dick that works here, I'll murder them. Yes, we do share popcorn.
100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
It's National Cassidy Day today. Did you know that?
is that what
So
it
it
is?
is for splitting David and Sean. That was my. I game planned for Sean Cassidy, and it was David Cassidy. So we're just gonna roll with it. National Cassidy Day.
Call an audible.
I'll meet you halfway. We'll do the first hour Partridge, and then Sean will get the next.
All right. Well done as always, Paulie.
Thank
All right.
you.
Let's go to our guest line. If you happen to be watching us on QSportsTalk.com, you'll see our next guest live and in person. So pleased to be joined by John Odierna, SU defensive coordinator. The Orange getting set to head back to Memorial Day weekend. Foxborough, Massachusetts is the site. Maryland is the opponent. Coach, great to have you on as always. How are you today?
Doing great. Just excited to be getting ready for practice again. And thank you guys for having me on.
All right, so I don't know how early you tuned in, but in the last segment we were talking about tiresome narratives surrounding SU sports, and one of them, the jumping off point was centered around your team, right? It was you were preseason number 2, and everyone, media, fans, everybody was saying Final Four or bust for this year's team. Did that grow, and I know that like midway through the season, especially after those 2 losses, you guys kind of got away from all of that. You didn't want to talk Final Four. You wanted to talk next game, next practice, next day. Did the outside noise of the Final Four impact this team early in the season at all? Did you have to address that with the team?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I guess what I would say is when you come to a place like Syracuse, as a coach, as a player, you are very aware of the tradition and history of the program. So I think regardless of the outside voices, noise, whatever you want to call it, the internal expectations were Final Four, national championship. And to be honest, it was the same last year. I think that's the expectation here every year internally. So, I think some of the outside stuff maybe validated or just pushed that narrative even further. And I think we just decided as a group that, back in February when we lost 2 games in a row, it wasn't possible to be in the Final Four. It wasn't possible to win the national championship. Let's silo our approach and just focus on each day. And if we can do that, we had faith that we'd end up in the spot that we've earned the right to be in right now.
So I was going to ask you that. I mean, it's one thing to say it, ignore the Final Four talk, guys. We got to take it one game at a time. It's another thing for the team and the players to buy into it. So I guess what was it about those conversations? Was it coach-led? Was it captain-led? How did you go about making sure that the players actually bought into that? Because they clearly have. And, we talk to them every week, and their messaging is the same as your messaging, and it seems like everyone is clearly on the same page. How did you get the players to buy into it?
I don't think it was too hard to get buy-in. When you're coming off back in February, we were coming off back-to-back losses. So I think you learn a lot more when you lose than when you win. And it forced all of us to reflect and hit reset. And we felt that, a lot of people around the country were hitting the panic button on our behalf. We were kind of just like, what do we need to do to recalibrate, reload, and go back to work and set ourselves up to make a run. So, I think there's a level of belief that comes with it. Our guys, I think we started the conversation, and then our guys took it and ran with it. And, we talked a lot about any good team, any team that's making a run, they start to have a rallying cry, some common language, vernacular, things like that, where you're hearing the same themes over and over and over. And I think our guys took we've joked about you got to beat Tuesday. Tuesday's got a great team. Then we got to beat Wednesday. Wednesday's got a great team. I would say the players took that narrative and ran with it a little bit.
Sometimes teams need to lose in order to learn how to win. I mean, you don't want it to go like that, but, those of us who've been around sports a long time, we see it time and time again that a young team might need to take some lumps, and then as they grow up, they get better in big game situations. This group in particular, obviously, 4 years ago they're winning 4 games, and then 8 games, and then double-digit wins last year, but you lose in the national quarterfinals, and then this year you get over the hump and you get to the Final Four. Can you speak to that, I guess, a little bit, the maturity of this group and how they have grown? And I don't think it's a coincidence that, you won back-to-back epic games the way that you did when, you could have folded down by 5 against Harvard, or you could have folded when Princeton took the lead with 4.5 minutes to go the other day, but you came back and you fought through that. Can you speak to, I guess, the maturity of this group to be able to overcome some of those things now and maybe won a couple of games here in the NCAA tournament that they would have lost the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think that's part of the progression in sports and in life, right? We all want it to come easy. Everybody wants to be the champion. Everybody wants to make it to the Final Four. Everybody wants to hold the trophy, right? But ultimately, you're going to have setbacks in college sports right now. And I'll say college lacrosse in particular, the parity is at an all-time high. This is probably the most competitive and compelling men's lacrosse tournament that's ever happened. So, I think for us, I think I did this in my spot with Brian last week. There's the old coaching chart. Success looks like this. You go up, then you fail and go down, then you go up, then you go down, and then you kind of jump off the charts once you've learned some of those lessons. So I think our season's been a little bit like that. You don't just win. You got to learn how to win. Sometimes learning how to win is you got to lose and recalibrate and look at the mistakes you made. And I think for us, I don't think we'd be here without some of the adversity that we faced early in the year. And then even in April, I think part of why we're here is because our back was against the wall going into the ACC tournament and checking into playoff mode earlier than maybe some other teams. And we've just ridden that wave now for a couple weeks.
You talk about it's constantly a learning experience as you go through the season. What did you guys learn specifically from a defensive perspective against Princeton? We talked about this yesterday in the TV side of things, Coach, that you give up 18 goals, but Jimmy McCool at the end came up with a couple of huge stops that put you over the top and you were able to win the game. What did you guys take away from that one from a defensive perspective?
Yeah, I mean, Princeton's an elite team, and our last 4 games, we've played 3 of the top 4 offenses, and then our break against Duke was against the number 6 offense. So we're playing against elite teams every time out. Princeton's just another one, talking about some of their recent games. They played Duke, scored 14, and Duke had a significant face-off advantage. UNC, they got to 15, and UNC won, I want to say, like 80% of the face-offs in that game. Cornell, they got to 15 goals, and Cornell had a significant face-off advantage in the game, right? So something we talk about a lot during the game is you can't really worry about what's happening and what the score is. The goal is just to be up by 1 at the end of the year or at the end of the game, and especially at this time of the year. So, what do we learn during the game is that I was really proud of our guys kind of keeping it afloat. It reminded me a little bit in a way of our Virginia game last year where it was a bit of a score fest and a thrilling game, but ultimately our defense had to be the backbone of the program and make a stop with the game on the line, and we were able to do that, and I think that showed a lot. Now, with that said, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Yesterday's film session wasn't the most warm and fuzzy of the year. We've got a lot to work on, and I know we've set a standard as a top 10 defense all year that we can play at a higher level than that. So I'm confident that while we've proven we can make the play when it matters, we've got to string together a little bit more consistent play this week if we're going to have a chance to play on Monday.
We had Tim Leonard on our show yesterday, and we asked him kind of the vibe around the team, the mood of the team, and again, he's close with the team, but he's not inside that locker room with you guys. But he said that he felt like the team was loose going into the Princeton game, and maybe looser than last year, and he compared it to the quarterfinal loss to Denver and said, he felt like maybe the team was a little tight going into that one with so much pressure, and that was the goal, and get to the Final Four. And he felt like the team was a little bit looser this time around. Do you feel that? Is that accurate, Coach? Do you feel like, this team is, not playing as tight as maybe they did last year?
Yeah, I think we're a pretty loose group in general. I think there was a level of comfort with being in this situation last year. I'm on the record as saying I thought last year we probably arrived earlier than people expected as far as being like the number 4 seed and all of a sudden favored in the quarterfinal game. I think this year there was a level of comfort having been in this spot before and understanding that we needed to approach it a certain way in order to have success. So yes, I do think we're a loose group, but I thought we were loose, but also more focused going into it and a little more business-like in our approach last week, maybe compared to the year before. And I thought it was a really positive thing. And our guys, again, we didn't blink in the face of adversity. Last year in the quarterfinal, we didn't come out quickly in the third quarter and we went down and we chipped away at it, but we didn't make enough plays, kind of ran out of time. This year's game was we were down, we were up, we were down, we were up. We were down again with 5 minutes left. I think we're just a more mature group, and we've learned a lot about ourselves over the course of this year and at the end of last year. And I think that's showing up right now and helping us.
All right, let's turn our attention to the opponent on Saturday. It's an opponent that you guys know awfully well. I know getting off to a good start is important in any game, Coach. Is it even more important against Maryland, given their style of play and the way they want to slow it down and be methodical? Is it essential to get off to a good start against these guys?
Yeah, I think it's always critical to try and get off to a good start. I think the game could take on multiple complexions depending on how the game starts out. I know Maryland does a great job of sort of being, like you said, methodical, disciplined. They execute better than anybody in the country. So, they're going to come out and be ready. And if we can start the right way and make the game sort of run at our tempo, I think that'll give us an advantage. But we've talked about it all year. You've got to be able to win a multitude of ways. You got to be able to win the rock fight, look at the ACC championship, and you got to be able to win the score fest and look at maybe this past weekend and all the other ways in between. So, we want to get off to a great start. We want to get out in front just like we do against everybody, but ultimately we'll play whatever style of game we have to play. And we have belief that we can win any type of game right now.
Maryland is obviously a really good team. Number 2 seed. You faced them down in College Park back in, what was it, mid-February, I think, 11-7. They got you with a strong second half. What do you take away from that first meeting? And I guess what do you apply to this one coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I think they're going to be a different team than we played in some ways, and we're a different team than they've played. Obviously, we've both learned a lot about ourselves over the last few months. I think going into that game, we were number 2 and they were number 6, so I guess that's a fun role reversal. But ultimately, none of that stuff really matters. I think they are who they are. They have a lot of tricks in their bag. It's just which ones and which buttons do they want to push. But I do think the familiarity with them as an opponent is good for our guys. It allows us to expedite things from a scouting perspective, from a matchup perspective, in all areas. And, I do think that it's going to be a fun challenge for us. They're obviously well documented. Coach Tillman and his group are one of the best when it comes to playoff lacrosse, and it's the perfect opponent at the perfect time for us.
And then I guess just lastly, Coach, can you speak to the vibe around the program, including the fans, right? This fan base has been, starved for, a Final Four trip. And after 12 years, you guys are going there and just the attendance figures you had towards the end of the season at home and the support you guys got down on Long Island last week. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton of Central New Yorkers, rooting on Cornell and Syracuse this week in Foxborough. Can you just kind of speak to the entire Orange Lacrosse family, fans, alumni, and just the vibe around the program right now as you guys get set to play in the national semis?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. There's no group of fans and no program like Syracuse as far as the following and the history and the tradition. And, the attendance figures show that the attendance on Long Island and the amount of orange there was in the crowd, Syracuse orange, I should specify. It was unbelievable. It felt like a home game. And Princeton had a good amount of fans too, but I just know Orange Nation travels so well. And, I already heard that our fan section is sold out for the game on Saturday. So, there's nothing like it. It's why you come here. It's why it's the best program to be associated with. And the fans, every game feels like a home game. And I think I said this the last time, we get enough hate too. So it just makes it for an exciting atmosphere every time we go out there, whether it's a home or away game. But I know the Syracuse faithful are going to travel, and I'm sure they've been hungry for this opportunity since 2013. So I'm excited that we're able to deliver it for them.
Well said and well done, Coach. Keep up the good work. Best of luck as you get ready for this national semifinal game, and we'll all be rooting for you. Thanks for coming on.
Great. Thank you, guys.
All right, John Odierna joining us here on the show.
Good job, Steve.
It'll be the 2:30 game on Saturday. Cornell, Penn State at noon. Syracuse, Maryland around 2:30, 3 o'clock, depending on when that first one
Correct.
ends.
If you want to hear the pregame with Kyle and Tim, you tune into TK99. If you'd like to hear the game before, you can listen here, as we will have the national coverage of the Final Four here.
All right. Exciting time, exciting week for SU lacrosse.
Scouting report for Syracuse's championship game, Steve.
All right. And we've got Terry Foy coming up at 1 o'clock. We can ask him.
All across, all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's a big story.
Yes,
it's a huge
Thank
story.
God for it, because we would be picking birds still.
No, we wouldn't. You lost the bracket. We'll take a time out here. We'll wrap up hour number 1 next on ESPN Radio.
I'll tell you what. I haven't pulled over to take a picture yet, but the bald eagles on Erie Boulevard.
You did pull over to take a picture.
No, I was walking that day.
Oh.
On Onondaga Lake Parkway are pretty majestic. Steve just said, "I hate you guys. I'm leaving. Can't stand the chat." The hell am I looking for right now? I was going to Google something. Oh, I know what it is.
Wardrobe change.
Steve is pulling a Buzz Williams sweated through his shirt, so he's got to change his shirt at halftime. Yes, he does call the chat the unwashed masses. That is correct. His massage parlor? That got weird yesterday. I'm not going to lie. That was weird. If you say something that makes me uncomfortable, it's crossed a line. A big fat line. Free massage or the purchase of a ham sandwich at your food truck? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, that was weird. I took vitamins this morning. Like, I take them every day, but I've been burping and it tastes like the vitamin. And it's not good. Yeah, Scooter was working blue yesterday. The Tucker Watson massage parlor. Oh, that's a good thing. I'll do that. Next subscriber gets Steve's shirt. That's a good one. Game used.
Game worn jersey?
Yeah, signed. Signed Stephen Fani shirt. I hope that's not an expensive shirt because we're giving it to the next person. You can sniff the armpits.
Will you stop it? You're gross.
We could put a vending machine out there. People being able to buy your undershirts and your... You want the horse collar shirt? What if we did that? We gave a Steiner collect. What if we gave away the shirts that they make fun of so much that you have to retire them to the chat so they can hang them in like a framed jersey?
Then they'll start making fun of shirts that I like because they want them.
No. What if you went into a guy's man cave and you had your polo shirt hanging up like a jersey? What striped shirt? The one with the black collar? No, this isn't nice and smooth. It's the OG. The Partridge Family. I Think I Love You. Because I got David Cassidy and Sean Cassidy mixed up. I apologize. Music guy Paulie can be stupid sometimes too. Not just sports guy Paulie. Steve.
Yes.
We've come up with a brilliant idea in the last commercial break.
I don't think it's brilliant at all.
You should give away your shirts that you retire as game used Stephen Fani shirts, and people can hang them in their man caves.
You need to explain to the radio audience that's not in the chat.
You switched shirts in the middle of the broadcast because you
did.
probably have something important to do after.
I do. I have to speak to a class.
Yeah. Okay. So you switch shirts, and I was like, you should. Someone goes, if I subscribe to Q Sports Talk, can I have Steve's shirt? And I was like, sure. Go ahead. We don't even need to ask him permission. That seems like fun.
I actually wouldn't mind parting with that shirt. I don't wear it very much.
Okay, there you go. Subscribe to QSportsTalk.com and you get a game-used Steve Fonte jersey worn during hour one. We'll even authenticate it. Worn during hour one of
ridiculous.
the Tuesday, May 20th, 25 Orange Nation.
A one of one.
Yes, that included John Odierna and Terry Foy. And then we'll put like a little sticker on it, and you can put it in a shadow box in your man cave.
You're ridiculous. But that's what we do at 1245, right? It's all about being ridiculous. So
I think people would want it. You're a TV star, radio star.
No, nobody knows I'm on TV, apparently.
You're like the Deion Sanders of Syracuse. You're a two-sport athlete. Bo Jackson.
Are you quite done?
Am I quite done? What are you talking to me like that? No, I just think that'd be cool. Is it weird that someone would want to win that?
Yes.
Yeah, what a great piece of history. And merch, yeah. You assign the collar. What size, Steve? Someone wants to know what size. It's 16 and a half. Right? Medium. Large.
It's a 15 and a half.
Oh,
32,
15 and a half.
33 sleeve.
All right.
15 and a half neck. There you go.
Swift Men said, I'll wear it to Taste of Syracuse. You can't wear something like that. You can't get like Tony Gwynn's 3,000 hit jersey and wear it. Oh, I remember that show like it was yesterday. They mixed up David Cassidy and Sean Cassidy. I recognize that shirt. It doesn't have to fit. You hang it in your man cave.
Okay.
How much do you think we can get on eBay for it?
$2.
Come on, game warm.
I don't want to keep Terry Foy waiting for this nonsense. So let's take a time out.
That shirt belongs in a museum.
We're going to continue the lacrosse talk on the other side. Terry Foy, CEO Inside Lacrosse.
That shirt won't fit 99% of the chatters. You're right. And then 2 days later, I'll have wings and Cheetos all over it.
Terry Foy, CEO Inside Lacrosse, joins us next on ESPN Radio.
Some fat guy in his basement just wiping his face with your shirt. I feel like I wear a 15 and a half. Or a 15, maybe? Fat guy in a little shirt. He'll have bloated ogre sweat on it. Joe Girard sucks. He's wiping the wing sauce off his face with your shirt. I'll trade you that shirt for your Star Wars figure. That's funny, Matt.
Whatever happened to those?
You took them back?
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't remember. We were gonna make so much money too.
I'm literally doing that now. Like it would be no problem for me to post them, but there's no guarantee what you're gonna get. Like I'm selling cards now like crazy.
All right. Business good?
It's been okay, yeah.
Good.
We're gonna start doing breaks when Series 2 comes out.
So how does that work? Like you buy them for other people? No.
Yeah, you buy the cards and people pay for the teams. And then you do like we did here, and everybody gets the team when you break it. Except for I won't steal the cards this time. Just send me pictures. Or bring them to me. Now that's an idea. Put the shirt on Borat. Yeah, but you know who's good. Like, take pictures of the good players and show me who they, Like, if you have Michael Jordan cards, send me pictures of them. If you have Derek Jeter cards, send me pictures of them. I don't need your Dave Magadan cards. You can do that anytime you want, CJC. Unsolicited card picks. Steve is well rested and jovial today.
Jovial?
Yeah. Are you quite done? Might be the funniest thing I've heard in a long time. Are you quite done?
Why is it funny?
I don't know. It just sounded like you were speaking the King's English to me or something. It was like something that would have said on Leave It to Beaver. Instead of telling me to shut the fuck up, you said, "Are you quite done?" I hate feet, by the way.
Order now and taste the difference. So see why it's got to be Nye at Nido.com. Hello, Central New York. I'm Dan Scherr, General Manager of the Nida Motor Group in Oneida and Rome. I want to say that if you're in the market for a newer pre-owned vehicle, now is a great time to buy. Don't be fooled by gimmicky dealer programs like guaranteeing you $4,000 for your cruise. Let's be honest, you know it isn't worth that. For scratch free gold bars, and you win $1 million. Or even the tariff.
You don't see him? No? Okay.
So Candy Maldonado, good one.
We'll plan on. We'll assume we don't have him unless you tell us.
Doug Drabeck, Pete Incaviglia, good one.
I'm really sorry about it.
Steve, have you ever told anybody to STFU?
What?
That is a great question. Have you ever used that on someone? Have you ever just said, shut up?
I don't think so.
How is that possible? How is that possible?
I mean, I've said.
Shut up.
No, I mean, I've.
You never just like been out with your friend at a bar and they're annoying you and you're like, shut the fuck.
No. Not in that context.
My God. Either your friends are angels or you're an angel. We are moving on from David Cassidy to Sean Cassidy on National Know That Cassidy Day. This is Hey Deanie by Sean Cassidy. Top 10 hit in the 70s. This sounds like it should be in the 50s.
Sounds like Wham.
Have you ever gotten angry, Steve?
Of course.
The chat, it's coming up like right now. And like, have you ever just like laid into somebody?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. I bet you it's terrifying when you're mad.
Everybody gets mad, Paulie.
You ever seen me mad?
Yeah. Definitely a couple times here.
If you think me at the chat is mad, that's not mad. That's
no, I mean, I've seen you upset in the office before. A couple times. Not much. We've been working together, 4 or 5 years now? I've seen it happen like twice.
All right. I got really mad once when I had to fax something at the back end of faxing, when faxing was a thing, and I couldn't get it to go through. I was like sending a contract, and I was screaming. That I was dropping out, like, who faxes still? Like, losing my mind.
Yeah.
We are good.
Okay, let's get to it
We
then.
can talk. We can go from fax to lax, huh?
Oh, well, good, great segue.
Thank you.
Segue. As we bring in, again, I said he's quickly becoming a good friend of the program. Terry Foy, CEO Inside Lacrosse, joins us now to talk Final Four weekend. Terry, we love having you on. How are you today? Terry, can you hear us? I'm not sure.
How's it going, fellas? Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Oh, he does have us now. Okay, excellent. All right, so we just had John Odierna on a couple segments ago, and he said that in his opinion, this might be the most intriguing NCAA tournament that's ever been played. Even just quarterfinal weekend, 3 of those 4 games were just as good as it gets in college lacrosse. I know there's some recency bias here, Terry, but would you say this is one of, if not, the best NCAA tournament we've seen to date? I know the Final Four hasn't been played yet, but these early rounds, is this as good as it's been?
Yeah, so I've done this mathematically by evaluating comebacks, overtimes, upsets, all that sort of stuff. And we haven't updated it for the 2025 year, but the competition is 2019. I don't know if you remember, but that year, 3 quarterfinal games went to overtime, and there were a couple of epic high-scoring affairs. And so when you consider how incredible the Harvard-Syracuse first-round game was, in addition to some of the upsets that we saw, in addition to how this past quarterfinal was, I think, when it comes down to it, trying to apply something quantitative to something that I don't think anybody really wants to math the numbers, it can still be helpful. And I think once we get down to the nitty gritty of all that, it'll turn out that if 2025 isn't the best tournament in the history, or at least since 2003 when they expanded to 16 teams, it's right up there in the running for it.
Yeah, and again, just specifically with Syracuse, these 2 NCAA tournament games have been, both have been instant classics. They were dead and buried against Harvard in that second half and somehow came alive and won the game. And then all the twists and turns against Princeton in a 1918 thriller. They fall behind with like 4.5 minutes to go, and they still find a way to get it done. What have you seen? I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride for this Syracuse squad. I mean, what has impressed you the most about this group? The fact that they started preseason number 2, fell out of the top 10 multiple times throughout the year, and now they're in the Final Four. What has impressed you the most, I guess, about this group?
So it's hard for me to separate out their variability, their ability to win in a couple of different ways, with the resilience and more acutely, they're having learned how to win, if that makes sense. It was something that I talked a lot about between 2023 and 2024. 2023, that team was talented, but there were so many freshmen that they were relying upon that they hadn't learned how to win. They hadn't even learned how to navigate a college lacrosse season. And I think you saw that with how the season advanced. In 2024, by virtue of some of the grad transfers, particularly, Jake Stevens and Sammy English, who had made it to the Final Four with Princeton, there was this infusion of having learned how to win at the highest level, with the fact that all the freshmen had become sophomores and they understood how a college lacrosse season unfolded. I think that when the rubber meets the road, which is the quarterfinals, there is something organic that has to have happened. And I think that's what we saw against Denver in Towson in May of 2024. That group, even though there were a handful of guys on it that had experienced winning at the highest level, they just didn't quite have enough to get over the hump. And I think that's the difference between last year and this year. Even though there is another year's worth of growth built into the core of this team, because so many of them are juniors, there's a lot more knowledge of how to win. And I think that ultimately is what was the deciding factor against Princeton.
You look at this matchup now with Maryland, and Maryland's had SU's number. They've won 7 straight games. They beat them back in mid-February. We know about John Tillman, and when he's got a week to prepare, how good he is. And I know that you're a big fan of this Maryland team in terms of how good they are. I guess what stands out to you the most about Maryland, and what is the biggest challenge, I guess, for Syracuse going into this semifinal game against the Terps?
I mean, I was talking to somebody yesterday who made the argument that this might be the best job that John Tillman has done coaching in College Park, which is an incredible statement when you consider everything that he's done and what he's put together. And I think that there's some merit to it, because when you consider what the strengths of their team that made it to the championship game last year and how unlikely that seemed when they were going up against Duke in the quarterfinals, to this year, it was really, so much of that team was kind of built around Luke Weirman, one of the best faceoff guys in the country, and Ajax Zapatello, the Schmeisser Award winner. Both those guys graduated, and yet this team, which had the same question marks offensively that they did last year, doesn't have either of those two things to rely upon, and yet they're still able to do this. They're still able to perform at this level. So, in some ways, it's a similar kind of story as Syracuse in terms of what impressed me. It's the combination of their variability and their resilience, but it's much different insofar as it's built into the culture at Maryland. It's built into what is expected. It's not something that we're seeing happen for the first time like we are with Gary Gate and his team. And so as a result, there's just a little bit of a difference when it comes to the Terps and how you kind of spin that forward with respect to making expectations for Memorial Day weekend and on Monday.
How do you see this game playing itself out? Because it is certainly a contrast in styles. We just saw Syracuse put up 19 goals against Princeton. They're not putting up 19 against Maryland. We know Maryland wants to play slow and methodical and keep you in single digits. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. But how do you see this one playing itself out?
Yeah, I think that ultimately so much about being able to set the pace and tempo comes down to possession and who's going to win possession. And that was one of the things about the Syracuse-Princeton game that surprised me the most. I really expected Johnny Mullen to dominate the faceoff and as a result, Syracuse to control the tempo of the game. And really what was even more impressive about that was coming in, even though so much of Syracuse's identity is around their offense, it was Princeton's offense that was the more reliable unit over the course of the year. And so I'm kind of on my heels a little bit when it comes to, all right, are we going to see a Johnny Mullen bounce back game and he's going to dominate against Jonah Carrier and Shea Kiefler and Sean Creeder? Or is Maryland going to figure out a way to muck it up and, some of the jump in the whistle violation issues that we saw against Princeton are going to manifest? If Maryland can control the game, then I think you're right. I think that you're probably going to see a final score in that, 12-10 type of range. But if Syracuse is going to dominate possession, I actually think that we might see Maryland rely a little bit more on early offense. They have really excelled at that at times this year. I mean, they've struggled. It was a huge part of the reason that they lost to Michigan in the regular season. But against Notre Dame in the regular season, against Penn State in the regular season, and even against Ohio State in the regular season, that was a huge part of why they were able to generate a lot of good scoring looks. And I think it's a pretty common thing when you've got an offensive unit that isn't super reliable in settled 6-on-6 offense. If Maryland tries to push, then it's going to be this weird inversion for Syracuse where, if they get a transition stop, then they have to make the decision, do we want to go slow offensively and really wear down this Maryland defense, right? So if in a 3-minute span, they're playing 2.5 minutes worth of defense, that's going to show up in the fourth quarter. So I think that it's going to depend a little bit on if Syracuse wins faceoffs, I can imagine Maryland trying to play faster. And if Maryland tries to play faster, then Syracuse is going to have to decide, do we want to get in a track meet with this team or do we want to try to beat them with their own game and wear them down a little bit?
Interesting. Fascinating storyline there. And you look at the other semifinal game, Terry, and, a bunch of fascinating storylines with that one. Jeff Tambroni, local guy here, went to West Genesee, coached at Cornell for 10 years. Now he's going up against his former team, a team that they beat this year. It's a rematch. Cornell's only loss came to Penn State in overtime. What do you make of this other semifinal matchup between the Big Red and Nittany Lions?
So I think that it's easy to say that result happened because of the late non-releasable penalty against Jack Cascadden and the way that Penn State was able to utilize that to close a gap late and ultimately win the game in overtime. But I do think that overlooks some of the matchup assets that Penn State has at both ends of the field. And so I would just say this is a really close game on paper, maybe even closer than either the seeding or the Vegas betting lines or some of the kind of intellectual prognostication might suggest. But there's no question that it's even richer in narrative than it is in storyline. I think that, one of the things that I'm really curious and interested in is Jeff Tambroni found Connor Busick. He was a player from Cincinnati, Ohio, who wasn't going to get a ton of other looks, I don't think. And then Tambo came calling, and all of a sudden, 15 years later, they're matching up against each other in a Final Four. And Connor is obviously one of the best and brightest young coaches in the game, and now with an opportunity to make it back to the national championship game for the second time in 4 seasons, it's pretty remarkable. But obviously, one of the other storylines is Jeff Tambroni going back to Gillette Stadium. And, I was fortunate by virtue of coincidence to walk down the tunnel underneath the stadium after the end of the 2009 national championship game and just kind of observe him process that. And I feel like in the intervening 16 years, he and I have had a lot of conversations. He's gone through a tremendous amount of professional moments, highs and lows. And, for this to be so fateful, I suppose, and take it back to Gillette Stadium is just incredibly, incredibly rich.
Yeah, we saw Jim Boeheim do that, right? Lost to Indiana in the Superdome, and then he got his one and only championship, in the Superdome, and kind of, exercised those demons, and so we certainly get it here. I wasn't planning on asking you this, but since you bring up 2009 and Tambroni, and you've had conversations with him, how does he, in all this time removed, how has he processed kind of what happened? For that championship to slip away that day, is he over it? Is it something that he will never be over? How has he processed it over the course of these last 15 years or so?
Yeah, well, I don't want to speak for him, and I certainly don't want to make it seem like I am closer to the situation than I am. But I have spoken to him about it a couple times, and I think that the best way to describe it is he's so process-oriented, and he is so sports, and things happen, and that's why we love it, right? That's why it is the human drama. I know that he has second guessed and thought about alternative decisions that he could have made, but I also know that he doesn't spend a lot of time on that because he knows that there's nothing he can do about it. And one of the things that makes him such a great coach and has allowed him, to take Cornell to multiple Final Fours and now to take Penn State to its third Final Four is by being so process oriented. And I'm sure that he's going to get asked about it. I'm sure he's already been asked about it a lot this week. I'm sure that he's going to deflect and demur the answers as much as possible. I'm sure he's going to think about it when he gets back out on the field. But ultimately, I think he knows that it's not going to have an effect on what goes on once the whistle blows on Saturday, or God willing for Penn State fans on Monday.
All right, so it's prediction time, and we had you on prior to the ACC tournament, and you spoke it into existence. You said Syracuse is going to win the ACC tournament. I'm not sure you 100% believed it, but it certainly came to fruition. What do you make of the two semifinal matchups? Kind of walk us through who wins both of them and why, and who ultimately is cutting down the nets.
Well, let me caveat this by saying that I picked Notre Dame to win the national championship, so my bracket is busted, and you should fade all of my picks. When it comes to this one, we're early enough in the week that I'm going to reserve my right to switch. I'm working out the problem on the chalkboard right now. I feel like I am very afraid to pick against Maryland because of their experience, because their familiarity with the stage on Saturday. So I think if it weren't the Final Four, I'd probably pick Syracuse because I think that, number one, I think they're more talented and a better team. And number two, because they lost the first matchup this season, I think that they have the advantage of incentive to change. But it is the Final Four, and the stage is very big. And John Tillman is the best at preparing his team for that stage. And so as a result, I'm going to have to pick the Terps. I apologize to Syracuse fans listening.
No, it's okay.
And on the other side, I'm going to go with Cornell. I think that one of the great things about lacrosse is it kind of sits in the middle of the influence one player can have on a game. It's not basketball where one player can take over and dominate, but it's also not football. And so one player does have the potential to be able to influence things. I was really surprised by how sluggish Cornell looked at times against Richmond, and yet the power of will, and led by CJ Kurtz. I mean, his stat line, 2 goals, 2 assists, not eye-popping for him. 10 ground balls and 3 caused turnovers. That is, to me, the indication of a leader who was willing his team to win, wasn't going to allow them to lose. And I think that is the type of thing that manifests over the course of the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and championship. And so, I'm going to pick the Big Red in the other semifinal, and then I'm going to kind of parlay those two things into Monday. Obviously the Terps record on Monday is not the Terps record on quarterfinal weekend or semifinal Saturday. And I do believe in CJ Kurtz's power to will the Big Red back to their first national championship since 1977.
Yeah, it's been a while for them, and that would certainly be something. Central New York's going to be well represented, I tell you that. A lot of fans going to Foxborough to root on Cornell, root on Syracuse. We'll be there as well. Terry, I know you'll be there. Thanks so much for coming on. We really do appreciate the time, and enjoy what should be a great week of lacrosse. Thanks, guys. You as well. All right, Terry Foy, CEO from Inside Lacrosse, joining us here on the program. And with that, we'll open up the phone lines the rest of the way. 315-437-7644. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.
Good job, Steve.
Boulevard in Syracuse, where you can buy, sell, or trade. And Pawn Pro, they'll tell you what it's worth, so you don't have to guess. Find them online at pawnpro.com.
Fellow foodies, it's almost time for the Summit Federal Credit Union Taste of Syracuse, presented by Tops Friendly Markets, June 6th and 7th in and around downtown.
It's the biggest food festival in our area, with more than 90 of Central New York's best restaurants participating.
First time at the Taste? Stop by the Kinney Drugs info booth and learn about everything this free, family-friendly festival has to offer. For more details, check out tasteofsyracuse.com.
Check out the Bayheim Foundation, Wilson's RV, out and about near you. Register for the Bayheim Weekend Experience at Turning Stone, June 27th and 28th. Includes the annual Bayheim Foundation Celebrity Golf Classic, poker tournament, and more. Register at bayheimfoundation.org. And you can round up your purchases at Wilkins to help our foundation and support children in our area. Thanks to Galaxy Media Group and CNY Central for their support of our community and foundation. Step right up and get the car sale of your dreams.
Oh, it's a Carnival Cup game?
Now, find the sale.
Is that a thing?
Is it the Labor Day sale? Or Groundhog Day? Or Bastille?
Are you adding cups?
It's the best sale of the year. At least one of them is.
Oh, I just shot back this one price.
today's business
They list their best prices all year round. Yeah, on the lot,
Ah,
even online.
what did you say?
They just put it right out there.
But you missed the sale.
Their prices are back with 120% price assurance guarantee.
Ugh.
One price. No haggling, no fake sales, no theatrics.
Someone in YouTube say hi. Let me make sure my chat's working. Okay, Travis Tarr said something with a Penn State logo next to him. A cover of the classic from Sean Cassidy. Chicks in 1978 were swooning to this, Steve.
I bet. At the malt shop.
I don't think there were malt shops in 1978, Steve. Maybe Woolworths. If it came on at Sears in the ladies department.
All right, we've got
Speaking
Scooter.
of 78, let's go to Scooter.
What's up, Scooter?
That's it, 78. A couple of fun facts about David Cassidy. He wasn't getting paid for the songs he was doing on the show. If you looked at the credits at the end, he wasn't even mentioned, and he had to renegotiate it so he got paid for the songs. And it's actually still on locally on WSUAR My TV and on Saturday afternoon. And also David Cassidy, for about a short period of time, actually bred horse race horses in the state of New York. He was actually breeding horses. I was up at Saratoga, and I laughed. I said, "Looks like David Cassidy in the winner's circle." Sure enough, it was David Cassidy. So he didn't do it for that long, but he was actually owning horses and race horses. Paulie, I'm trying to figure out the angle how playing down in MetLife actually helps Syracuse football. I have a different angle, the opposite, and I want to hear your angle to make sure I'm hearing you right. Why do you think it helped Syracuse football?
Because it built fans in areas outside of Central New York. It made you the state's team.
Well, if you looked at the attendance, first of all, they didn't win the game down there, did they?
No, it doesn't matter if they won or not. You just have to get in front of those people, and you make the money from those games.
They might have made money, but what people there? If you go back and look at the attendance, I mean, USC, I think, was 34,000 total, and there was a ton of USC fans. And how many fans traveled from Central New York? If you look at the Penn State, that was totally Penn State fans there. I think they played West Virginia. They played Notre Dame twice there. From an attendance standpoint, I don't think the alumni showed up. And it is in MetLife, which is actually in Jersey. And they used to play Rutgers in MetLife when Rutgers when they joined the Big East for a while, and they didn't draw. So I don't know. I don't know how the alumni. Basketball is a whole different animal. You're absolutely right. They played in the Garden against St. John's, and the alumni showed up for basketball. I just don't think they showed up for football, and I think they took away the prestige game on the season ticket holders, and I think left a disdain. I think people said, you know what, they did this in the 70s. They moved a couple of games, Army and Notre Dame, to Yankee Stadium, and a lot of fans said, this is our game that we want to see, and if you're going to move it, then why should we support the Holy Crosses and the names on our schedule? So I think it kind of hurt a little bit too.
Yeah, but you also have to look at things from a perspective where if you want to play teams like Notre Dame and USC, you've got to make some concessions.
Scooter, let me throw out the fact they're starting this year with Tennessee. I mean, do you like that? I mean, Tennessee's not coming to Syracuse. Do you like the fact that they're playing Tennessee at a neutral site?
Well, that's just a neutral site game, isn't that? Like Alabama was playing down in Texas against somebody.
No, I know, but
it's not. It's not a home game. The home game was taken away from Syracuse.
Right,
It wasn't an add-on game like a 13th game. It was a game, and the laugh at Notre Dame was they're using Syracuse's size. They played at Duke at a 32,000-seat arena or Wake Forest, and sure enough, they ended up playing in Syracuse the last couple of years. So I'm just saying that from a fan's perspective. I know fans were turned off about it, and from the alumni standpoint down there, I don't think they showed up.
The fans weren't going to the Dome either, though.
Well, and again, just to jump in here, USC wasn't going to the Dome either, right? So if you want to play USC, it had to be a neutral site, right? You had to make it enticing for them.
Syracuse made more than they would have selling out the Dome by going to those games.
Okay,
and they weren't going to sell out.
I think it hurt them at the end because people didn't. I think it held against it too. And the attendance, it took a while for the attendance to come back locally.
It was because the teams were bad, though. It wasn't because of playing those games down there.
Well, okay, but that's my point. Is that if it's Notre Dame or Penn State or somebody big, and you took away a home game. If that was just, I mean, Syracuse used to play down there. They played Wisconsin when you'd be able to add the extra game for the opener. Remember how they used to play the football classics? They used to play games down there before, but they didn't hurt the home schedule. And
the reason they did it, though, was I think because the attendance was bad in the Dome and they needed to make that money elsewhere.
Well, they made it because the other people showed up then. It wasn't because of the alumni down in New York City. That's my point.
Yeah.
Well, they made it by doing the game.
They did it as a guaranteed game. Right. It's not out of who was there.
Right. How come they stopped doing it then? I
don't know. That's a good question. They should bring it back.
Okay. Well, there has to be a reason.
Yeah. I'm guessing they stopped because either one, MetLife doesn't want to pay, to do those games anymore, or maybe they've got other schools doing them.
I mean, the other thing, too, to keep in mind is I think they tried to adjust their non-conference scheduling when things started to go south, right, in terms of trying to get this program back on track. I don't know that you necessarily wanted a USC right off the bat or a Penn State right off the bat. I think there were various factors that went into it. The money part of it, though, and I think the narrative that Syracuse is New York's college team, and it worked to some degree, right? Because of how Dr. Gross positioned Syracuse and the New York City market, and it did work to get them into the ACC. And then I know those games came after they got in the ACC, but it was about money, right? And it was about pushing that narrative that it's New York's college team. And I think from a football perspective, it didn't go great, obviously.
No, but
right?
it got them guaranteed money.
Correct.
Like
right.
Syracuse fans can complain. They weren't going to games. And it wasn't a great product, but they had to do something to make money.
Correct. And I think it's just like anything else. They weighed the pros and cons, and when they did it, they felt like it was more beneficial for the program to do it than not to do it. And, in recent years...
And they're probably making money to do this game in Atlanta.
Well, yeah, you would think, yes. Right? You think, Paul? Yes, of course they are.
I don't get why that, anybody is like, if it's money, you take it.
Right. And I get that people are upset that, it would have been nice to see USC in the Dome. USC wasn't coming to the Dome. USC did the game because it was neutral site.
It probably would have been Toledo or somebody.
Yeah. So, it is what it is and over and done with now. But it, they made their money. That's why they did it.
I wouldn't be mad if it happened again.
Again, somebody else is running the show, though, now. And, he's got to deem it beneficial. And they deemed it beneficial to go play Tennessee and Atlanta. And
if Syracuse can make money that they can put towards anything, they should do it. If it's the equivalent of, hey, you sell out the Dome, you would make this much money, but we're going to pay you this much more, you do it.
Yeah, right. It made financial sense at the time. Let's get one more quick phone call in. Ryan in Virginia's up next. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Just a quick comment on attendance. You're just saying that Syracuse fans weren't going to games during that era for football. They're still not going to games, unfortunately. I mean, if there was ever a season last year where you thought they could sell out the Dome for a variety of reasons because the team was really good, and then there were 6,000 or 7,000 less seats than there were the year before. If you can't sell out a 42,000 seat stadium when you got Kyle McCord and you got a team that's knocking off Miami when they're in the top 10, I don't know if they'll ever be able to sell. I mean, last year, how can you not sell out when the team is that good and you got a quarterback like McCord?
It's got a good point.
Well,
I thought the Miami game would be a sellout.
I did as well. I think that if they stack a couple seasons like that, I think you'll get back to that point. I really do. I mean, it's maybe some people were hesitant to fully buy back in. Last year, I think that if they do this consecutive years,
yeah. But also, Steve, it was like it doesn't happen often. Just go enjoy it,
But we don't know,
team.
And I hate to say this, but we don't know.
How many years of sustained winning do you need to go buy a ticket to a game? They don't happen that often. Go to when it's happening.
I understand what you're saying, and I hate to say this, but we don't know what would have happened after the Miami game. If they played Miami the second to last home game, and then they were playing, Clemson in the last one, or what, if it was an upper tier team, would there have been, more people there? Would they have been able to sell it out? I don't know the answer to that, but I do think if they stack 9 win seasons, back to back or 3 you're going to see the people come back to the point where you're selling out games.
Yeah, but I tend to think of it the other way. Hey, this might be a catching lightning in a bottle. I'm going. Let's go. We've been through a lot of misery.
I mean, the attendance last year, I just looked up Miami. It was 41. It was 40 and a half. It was 40,486.
3,000 short.
Yeah.
It should be sold out.
No, I agree, but it's not like people weren't going to the games. I mean, that's still pretty good.
People always ask Fran Brown what the difference between Syracuse and the SEC is. Yeah, that game would have been sold out in 80,000 seat arena or stadium or 100,000 seat arena.
I was looking up the attendance for the game before, which was, keep in mind, it was UConn. 35 and change for UConn.
And you know what? That game in the SEC also would have been sold out.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Listen, I totally agree. There is more work to be done, obviously, but I think they can get back to the point where they can sell out, 42 and change if they're able to stack a few winning seasons together.
Let me ask you an attendance question. Like Syracuse, I think that NIL tournament's around Thanksgiving.
It is. I believe it's Thanksgiving week.
Yeah. Are they going to struggle with attendance if they struggle there?
What do you mean?
Like if the basketball
you're saying
team
if they're going to struggle in Syracuse if they struggle at that tournament?
Yeah, if they come back with an 0 for 2 or an 0 for 3 against St. John's and Duke and the likes, or not, they wouldn't play Duke, but it's a stacked tournament again.
Yeah. I don't know, Paulie. It's hard to say because people are turned off right now, and you're saying would that turn them off even more?
People also have to realize that's at the end of the season,
right?
Because that tournament's stacked.
It is. I mean, you go back to last year; they lost to Texas and Texas Tech in two close games.
We thought those were easy games compared to the year before, and they weren't.
Yeah, they weren't. Both teams. Texas Tech in particular turned out to be really good, and Texas was pretty good. Yeah, I think right now people are turned off by what the product, right? And so they need something to turn them on.
It'd be nice to get a win in one of those.
Yes, it would. It would be huge for a lot of reasons. It would be huge.
I think Oregon, St. John's.
It is a stacked field again. You're right about that. All right, we don't want to get too far behind here. We're going to take a timeout. We'll bring in Jordan for today's business, maybe some blind rankings as well.
Ooh, my favorite.
Back after this on ESPN Radio.
Subscribe to QSportsTalk.com and you get a game-used Stephen Fonte jersey worn during hour 1. We'll even authenticate it. Hour 1 of ridiculous. Tuesday, May 20th, 25 Orange Nation.
You're ridiculous. But that's what we do at 12:45, right? It's all about being ridiculous.
Orange Nation, noon to 2. ESPN Radio, 97 points.
They play indoors. That fox won't hunt, Stephen Fonte.
What?
I'm coming up with terms with your "Are you quite done?"
I don't know why. Are you quite done?
I don't know. It just sounded like you're using. It was a very Steve thing to say. Nobody talks like that.
I feel like a lot of people talk.
That fox won't hunt when you use terms like that. I agree. That was very Steve. Yeah. That's something Mary Poppins would say. Are you quite done?
I disagree.
Steve, you're the best. How was it, T-Takes? Was Atan on those teams? I think he was. A spoonful of Infante helps the medicine go down. Your stomach growling? Dear God, that was the longest stomach growl in the history of mankind.
Thanks for calling me out.
I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't like 30 seconds of a rumble. I thought that Richter scale went up.
I'm hungry.
Guess so. Jeez. The inner beast of Steve Fonte just released. Steve floating down with an umbrella. The Infante chicken grumble. What's for lunch, by the way? I saw you.
Rice and chicken.
Oh my God. I have lamb seasoned up in my fridge. I haven't cooked yet. I got to do that today.
Andre Blatch, who decided to change how his name was pronounced midway through his NBA career. All throughout high school, he was Andre Blatch. Then his mom said it should be Andre Blotch. And then the announcers, like the Wizard announcers, started changing how they pronounce his name.
We're talking about Wizards legend, local hero Andre Blotch.
Because he was in a documentary about the shooting guards and the gun incident in the Wizard.
Oh, shooting guards.
It's a play on words.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I was 16, sick of school.
This is a banger. You remember this one, Steve?
I do.
I'm embarrassed that I know these songs. Sean Cassidy, that's rock and roll. This is way before you, Jordan.
It does sound like Wham. Like he sounds like George Michael here.
Take that back. You just insulted one of the greatest of all time with it.
So great, you got him mixed up with another guy?
Yeah, you just... No, I'm saying he compared it to George Michael. George Michael's one of the greatest.
I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down, Steve. I'm not going to lie.
I kind of model my facial hair after George Michael. He's my dream facial hair guy. If I could have facial hair permanently, it would be like George Michael. Just that manly 5 o'clock shadow.
I read something about Carson Daly when he was popular at MTV, that he would shave at like certain times of the day, so based on when he was going to be on, so that his hair, his facial hair looked exactly the same every time. Like he would shave at odd times of the day, like back time it from when he was next going to be on.
Makes sense.
What were you reading?
I don't remember where I came across that. But
He was trying to see if John Daly was a good value bet and ended up on Carson Daly.
I forget where I saw
shaving habits I've been interested in. Carson Daly. How does his beard always look so good? Let's check that out.
I don't know how I came across it. It was years ago I saw that. But anyway, he hasn't been popular for years. Jordan, what do you have? It's today's business. It's brought to you by Grossman St. Moore CPAs.
And their website?
GSACPAs.com. All right, here's the deal. I'm going to leave this up to you. I have what I think has the potential to be a phenomenal blind rankings, but we're a little behind the 8 ball here. Do we want to save it for when there's a little more time, or do we want to just?
I want to do a blind.
Rip it.
We have 10 minutes.
I want to do a blind ranking.
8 minutes.
It's like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got all the time in the world. We got too much time on our hands. Let me get a pen and a paper. Thank you.
Okay.
5.
So, if you made note of your rundown title and went through the rundown, and noticed the key word, the theme of today's show was irritating things.
Yeah.
So I want to blind rank just irritating everyday things to see whether or not I overreact to certain things or whether this is relatable.
The chat is going to say me at number 1, right?
You are not blind rankings worthy. I'm sorry.
So number 1 is most irritating. 5 is least irritating. Okay.
Now, here's what's tough. I came up with 9, just like in the Duncan line,
okay,
which is very on brand.
That would be 1.
And I've got to pick 5. I'm going to start with the OG, the one that kind of got me there, which is driving behind somebody who is either slow or just inept. Like screeches on the brakes at a yellow light when you both could have made it. It's just like going on the same lane as you, but mostly just driving behind somebody slow.
So drive, like, just a-hole drivers on the road with you.
I wouldn't say as much a-hole, more incompetent. Like yesterday, I will never go around somebody, even if it's like one of those dashed lines where you're allowed to, passing lane, whatever. I had to do it yesterday because somebody was going like 30, like all the way. But where I live near like Marcellus, you can go as fast as you want. It's fair game, not soliciting advice or anything.
Can we throw in somebody who goes like exactly 55 on the highway in the passing lane, or like or 52?
That's basically what I envision. The person who drives exactly the speed limit and you're behind them.
Here's another thing.
That feels like a sleeper that would piss you off. Steve's like, I got somewhere to be.
It really does. Steve to drop the F-bomb. This happened to me twice in the past 2 days. A motorcycle on Cold Springs Road passed me in a no passing area, going about 1,000 miles an hour. Like right now, like if I had opened my door, I would have killed the guy.
Wow.
It's always BMWs. I'm on 690 last night coming home, and a 2690 or a BMW is going about 1 billion miles an hour, in and out of traffic, flying down 690. That annoys me because they're going to kill somebody.
Yeah, I agree.
You're not going to kill anybody going 55.
It's all part of this topic. I'm going to go 2.
We're going to have to create our own because I don't have road rage as bad as
you can't create your own. You have to agree here.
No,
you decide every time. Why not give Steve 2 here? You want Steve to be passionate and angry. He's finally passionate and angry.
There's a lot more things that are going to be make me angry.
Let Steve be 2.
I'm a 2 on this one.
Okay.
No, you can have your own. Have your own rankings.
No, this is collaborative.
No, we can't. We'll go with your stupid 2 because I find certain things super annoying, and that's not one of them.
Okay, next, as I accidentally used the word soliciting incorrectly, I reversed it, but talking to somebody who commonly misuses or mispronounces a word. So if you're thinking of like an example, we love Scooter, but like Scooter will butcher phrases.
Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't really bother me.
No?
No.
That makes me so mad because it's like, just don't use the word if you don't know what it means.
Steve in North Syracuse used to say nil instead of NIL.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. So
Really?
5. We're going 5.
English.
Okay.
Bad English.
We're getting rid of our 5 early.
Yeah. Being in a situation where you have to stay put and hearing a small, repetitive sound over and over again.
Give me an example of where this would happen in my life.
Like you're sitting in
your hotel
You're sitting
room.
by a window and like rain keeps dropping over and over again.
I find that soothing.
It's a bad example, but
like you're in a hotel room and the fire alarm battery's dead. It is just going,
something like that. Yeah, I'm thinking more like subtly annoying, and it just kind of gets to you.
That soothes people. What you described.
I don't know about that.
That is a weird one. That like
I don't know about that.
I put rain sound on at night to go to bed.
That's different though. That's intentional. Am I completely missing the mark, Steve, or do you know what I'm talking about? You're like sitting somewhere trying to watch a movie and there's just like a small sound like over and over again.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me.
Wow.
It does.
I picked a bad one.
See, no, like that's different. Like someone being annoying and making a noise, like smacking their lips while they're eating the popcorn, that would annoy me. But
so that's a good example, Paulie, because I can't talk to people on the phone when they're eating.
Loud eaters are annoying.
Yeah. Like that's a pet peeve of mine.
Okay, so I'll put that at 4.
I figured
repetitive
like,
sound.
That was just too obvious. Like I had a roommate in college who could not chew with his mouth closed, and it was
there's 2 people in this office that eat super loud, and it irks me, and I can't be in the same room as them. Thank you.
Okay.
So we're putting that at 4, not 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Leaving the house and realizing shortly after that you either like missed a spot shaving or have a stain or something that you can't immediately fix.
3. Yeah.
It ruins my entire day.
Go home and fix it.
It's not how a job works.
Shaving mist.
I hope you saved a really annoying one for this.
Because these aren't really that annoying.
What would you guys put at 1?
You're easily annoyed.
I'm tempted to put the driving thing at number 1. Certain things. The Paulie thing talking about people zipping by you and going 100 miles an hour. I hate that. And then I hate the people who sit in the passing lane and just go 55 and they're like, oblivious to everything else. Yes. Anyway.
People.
See, here's my issue. Like half of them had to do with driving, but I didn't want to do all driving. So I had to start thinking.
You know what's really annoying is when you ask someone how they're doing and they actually tell you. Oh my God. That is a 1. Like, just say good and shut the F up.
All right, what's our last
I
one
think
here?
these are actively annoying and not minor inconvenience. I don't know. Like I said, I had 9. So
pick one.
Now I feel like I can't pick one that's good enough for 1. So the list is going to be terrible. Like one that I have that's very fitting for me that you guys would be like, that's not annoying, is when you're in a group text and it's just blowing up, your phone blowing up when you're busy.
Oh my God, that is absolutely, that would be.
It's annoying, but I figured your guys' response would be just turn your ringer off. But it's like you really can't.
That's a 1 or 2 to me too.
So
like,
when that happens, I just put it on silent.
But it's annoying.
It is annoying.
How can you do that though? I feel like with your job, like
one time I took a shower and came back and you two had like 67 things go.
Yeah, well, if it's something that's important, then I chime in and I'm going to be an active participant in the conversation. If it's something I don't care about, I silence.
Matt from Auburn says people that ask what's happening in a movie while they're watching it is, and I hate that too.
I think people that explain the movie as it's going are worse. Like my mom, bless her, but like we'll be watching a movie and she'll be like doing play-by-play of the movie, and it's like, Mom, I'm watching it. She'll be like, oh, this. It's like, I'm watching it. Like we're both here. I don't know. What would you guys put as like the most annoying things possible? Because other things I had on here, and this is where it gets bad. A lot of them were driving. Road work. Hate road work. It's really annoying. Like leaving the drive-through and realizing whatever you got either tastes bad or you're missing something.
That's annoying.
I've ordered something, paid for it, and drove away without taking it out of the window. That's annoying.
That you deserve that one. I have when you're making something, but you realize you don't have an ingredient midway. Like you pour a bowl of cereal, look in the fridge, there's no milk.
Not a problem for me.
When you're one ingredient away and you don't have something, that's annoying.
That's the worst. Especially when it's cereal, because then are you going to eat the dry cereal? You're going to pour the bowl right back in the box?
Tim Leonard was with me when I did that. When I went to Starbucks, ordered my drink, and drove away, and what the hell did I just do? All right.
Steve goes through drive-thrus. The chat says they don't. Steve loves a good market fresh sandwich. Brand redacted unless you pay.
All right.
Wait, so what's like the most annoying? Like if you guys made this not blind, like what would your number 1 be?
Segment every day on our show?
We could just not do it.
The driving thing is high on my list. The people eating while you're trying to talk to them on the phone is high on my list.
Oh.
The people not respond. Like what I don't like is when you reach out to somebody and they just don't respond. Like for instance, if you're trying to book an interview or whatnot, Jordan, like it takes 2 seconds to say no, I can't. Or you know,
I've got 3 right now that I'm waiting on since last night.
That is incredibly annoying to me.
People who talk on their phone in public.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Especially when they have earbuds in and you can't tell who they're talking to. That bothers the hell out of me.
How about when you're flying, although you can't relate to this, Paulie, but like they start doing it by groups, and the people who are in like group 7 are like right up by the gate. But then, there's still group 1, 2, 3. Everybody's got to go. But those group 7ers that crowd up by the gate.
Is this annoying or not? I don't know if it's embarrassing or annoying, but I don't like, even if it's the next table, if I go to a restaurant and someone's just being super like demanding of the wait staff.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just from the next table. I'm like, Jesus, like this drink, there's not enough ice in it. Could you bring it back? And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, like get a life. There's 8 tables.
Kevin says people at red light on their phone and don't go.
That's a good one.
That is too, but you know who I hate is the people that honk when it's been like an 1/8 of a second. I want to get out of my, like I literally want to just sit there.
That's the equivalent of commercials.
Yeah.
when we get
Someone
to a commercial.
Right. We're way late.
Somebody honked at me as they had already passed me. It's like, what's the point?
All right. We'll take a quick time out here. We'll wrap things up next on ESPN Radio.
I was turning left out of my driveway and there was a car that was going by me, and I normally don't, but I was like, I can I can beat that car.
You know what I hate is when I bring one poop bag on the walk with me and the dog takes 2 poops.
Oh, my dog doesn't 2 poop. Had a dude.
Oh my!
What did he do in front of you?
The other day, I was at Dollar General, yeah, that's what it's called.
Having to wade through all the common folk is funny.
I was walking, and I had no idea that I was going to fart, and it just happened. And I'm like, oh my God, am I at that age where I have no control over my body?
That's another
super loud.
I cannot stand in the grocery store when people just don't know. Like if I'm walking through the aisle and somebody's like looking at the cereal, but they have their cart in the middle of the damn aisle, they're taking up the whole thing. Just bad grocery store etiquette pisses me off.
You ever been hit by someone's cart in the back of the leg? That hurts so fucking bad, and I want to murder those people. I saw a kid do that to a mom the other day at Target, and I thought the mom had this look on her face like, I can't yell at this kid right now because we're in the middle of the store. Whereas when I was a kid, I would have gotten beaten for it.
But nowadays you're getting videoed. You can say that ? What did you say? The curse word?
What?
We're only on Q Sports Talk, Florida Guy. We're not on the radio right now. I smashed the cart, Jordan. That's so funny. This reminds me of the time where I said, that it makes me mad when somebody doesn't take a legal right on red. And you guys are like, nah, like they don't have to if they don't want. It's like, no, take your right on red.
No, I've done that before.
Oh, my bad.
Not in public, but.
Did
Do you think Steve's ever crop dusted us or anybody at Channel 9?
Can you imagine that's why he's leaving the studio all the time? You do have to take the right on red, Tronic.
What if Steve is a prolific crop duster?
CT takes, I agree with you, but I feel like movie theaters are they're almost never crowded now, so talking in there almost doesn't feel as bad. Like if there's only 2 to 4 other groups of people in there and you're all just like hanging, I almost don't care. Maybe that's a bad take. Maybe it's more annoying. It's like, I know it's you. You're the only guy.
Got seed oil farts.
You turn in the middle of traffic. Who does that? Bad drivers are just the worst. I could never make it in like New Jersey or Boston or.
I like the person that, and it happens to everybody where someone's just in that perfect blind spot and they start moving into your lane and you're like, yeah.
Oh, we got some rice, some chicken.
Chicken rice. Nice. Are you a prolific crop duster, Steve?
Get deaded. Get deaded. Oh.
Smells good.
Chicken and rice.
Smells like it's got seasonings of some sort on it.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't tried it yet, but it does. It smells like it's got something.
Smells like that.
You have no clue what you're
smells
eating.
like that chicken's been marinated or something. You might not like it.
What's this?
Are you going in blind? Do we have? I was just thinking about that the other day.
Yes, he's on his 3rd shirt of the day.
Oh, so was that tomorrow? Remember I had sent you that Ed Holinsky thing?
Yeah, I think we agreed on tomorrow.
I think so.
Tomorrow would be huge. Tomorrow, 1:30, I think.
May 21st. Yeah, tomorrow 1:30.
And then that'll give me more time to bother some people who I'm surprised not to have heard from.
Banger alert. The do run. The do run.
Somebody told me that her name was Jill. The do run.
Remember this one, Steve?
I do.
Yeah,
Why didn't you do Cassidy the rapper?
Don't know him.
Really?
My first doctor's name was Cassidy, Dr. Cassidy.
Butch Cassidy? Is that a person?
Yes.
Am I not supposed to say that?
No, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Okay, I was going to say, did they do something bad?
Yes, they did.
Did they get canceled?
They would be canceled in today's society. Yes.
Okay.
They were robbers, I believe.
Last time I named Cassidy's.
Your favorite song artist picks, whatever we're doing here. All for One. They're going to be playing at Sharky's with Color Me Bad coming up in a couple months. All for One. I know one of their songs. 2. I'll Make Love to You. Is that them too? And
could be.
And no, that I think that something like I don't know. All for One. Josh Groban. Michael McDonald's solo work. We've done the Doobies. We're going to do Michael McDonald's solo. And Alice Cooper. I know you won't like Alice Cooper.
No, I'm going to go Michael McDonald.
Man, you know somebody's old when they're the leader of a group called the Wild Bunch. Like, you had to get in early on Mischief to claim that name. Why do I know Josh Groban?
Isn't he your generation? He's more of your generation than ours.
I'm going to go with Josh Groban and then hopefully not regret the decision once I figure
Kim
out
loves
who it
Josh
is.
Groban. So.
I'm going to go with Michael McDonald.
Nice.
We can play Yamo B there tomorrow. So,
all right, we got to go. Cody coming up at 3, Brian at 4. We're back at it noon tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day, everybody.